everyone. Welcome to today's Pet Pawcast. I'm your host, Dr. Roberta Westbrook, and thank you for joining us here at the Campus for All Animals, the Houston SPCA. We have an exciting show for you today with so much information. This week is Pet Poison Prevention Week. So I hope that I can give you some tips about preventing poison in your pet. There's lots of household items that are laying around that you may not know are poisonous, and I want to give you some of those hints so that you can keep your pets safe. In the meantime, think of any questions that you have. Hopefully I can help you. Post those in the chat. And then, for that, I want to introduce you to our pet of the week this week. This is Thelma. Thelma is an adorable female spayed, approximately 2-year-old mixed breed. She's so adorable. She came to us through a cruelty case where she was living in a home with too many animals, with someone who was overwhelmed with the number of animals. And so when she came in, she really did not have a lot of experience with loving human interaction, and she was very, very timid. But she's come out of her shell. She has a wonderful personality. She loves toys, particularly toys that squeak. She loves baby talk. And thanks to our volunteers and our staff who have really worked with her and shown her the amount of love that she deserves and can receive. So she's waiting for her home. Please come on down and visit with Thelma and all of the dogs and cats that we have available for adoption. So today we're going to talk about pet poisons and how we can prevent them in the home. So, let's just get started because, there's so many things in the home that we may not realize can be poisonous. And so I want to point some of those things out for you. So let's start with one of the things that most of you know can be toxic to pets. But I do want to talk about some of the differences, and that is chocolate toxicity. So you all have heard that chocolate is toxic to pets and that you should not give your pets chocolate. But you may not know which chocolates are better or worse than others. So I have a couple of examples here. I have this example of Baker's chocolate. This is unsweetened Baker's chocolate. I have this example, which is more white chocolate. And I have this example, which is milk chocolate. All very delicious, I know, but they definitely can be toxic to pets. Think if you can decide for yourself which one is the most toxic and which one is the least toxic. If you know, go ahead and shout it out in the chat, and we're going to go ahead and talk about it. So the first one that I'll talk about is actually white chocolate. White chocolate is actually not very toxic to pets. So unless they eat a lot of it, it could cause a little GI upset. But what we know is white chocolate actually is not considered true toxic for pets. So that's some good news, but still I wouldn't recommend giving your pets a treat of any sort of white chocolate at all. Now, when we get down to unsweetened Baker's chocolate and milk chocolate, overwhelmingly, the unsweetened Baker's chocolate is going to be the most toxic for your pets. You do not want your pets to get into unsweetened Baker's chocolate. It has the highest amount of toxic ingredient when compared to other types of chocolate like milk chocolate or dark chocolate. So the issue with chocolate is that it has a chemical in it that acts as a stimulant. And so when dogs eat too much of this chocolate, which can be based on weight, so it is weight dependent, that chemical ingredient causes a stimulant. And so what you can notice in dogs that are going through chocolate toxicity is they start to get really nervous, like they start to get the jitters. They can have panting. They can have anxiety where they're pacing and seem very restless. They can have vomiting, diarrhea, and in severe cases, it affects the heart. So you might notice, or you may not notice the heart condition, but your pet may become very anxious, panting a lot. And if they went to, say, a veterinarian, we would notice that they would have arrhythmias, very high heart rates, and it could potentially be fatal, particularly if they eat high amounts of unsweetened Baker's chocolate. So particularly during the holidays, you're baking cakes and you're using this unsweetened Baker's chocolate, keep it away from your pets at all times. So that's chocolate. So if you already knew that, good for you. You are ahead of the game. We'll stay on foods. So other foods that are toxic, delicious grapes. If you're like me, I love fruit, love grapes, and they're so easy to fall off the little stems and to fall on the floor when you're eating grapes. You grab a handful and inevitably one or two of them falls out of your hand or off the stem onto the floor. And so you might have your dog or cat that tries to scoop those grapes up. Happens very quickly. And you want to make sure that you keep this out of the reach of your pets. Grapes and raisins, for that matter, are toxic and can cause kidney failure. So this is something that you definitely want to make sure that your pets are steering clear from these grapes. Delicious for us, not good for the pets. And then, and still in the food category, we will talk about onions and garlic, also very toxic for pets. So onions and garlic can affect your pet's ability to carry oxygen in their blood. So what this does is it makes the blood cells abnormal in a way that they cannot carry oxygen appropriately. And so they oftentimes will suffer from lack of oxygen throughout the body. So please steer clear of garlic and onions. And it might be hidden in your food. You're cooking, you might have used garlic or onions in your food to season it. And then you feed your pets some of that food. Maybe you're feeding them turkey or chicken or something that had garlic or onion in it. And they eat too much of this, that can be toxic. So please make sure you are watching what you cook with and that you don't feed your pets table scraps because you never know what could be hiding in there. So what questions can I help you with?
So we did have somebody ask a question about like fruits. So obviously some, fruits that parrots like apples and carrots, but some of them have seeds.
Yes.
So are those toxic as well?
Yes, they can be. So particularly apples, you mentioned that. Do not let your pets eat the core of the apple. So, apple slices are not bad if they're eating the skin or the flesh of the apple, but once you get toward the core and you get to those seeds, those absolutely can be toxic. It takes a lot to become fatal, but it certainly can cause vomiting, GI upset. So agreed, stay away from the seeds. The same thing with like avocado. So the avocado pit can also be toxic. So you want to steer clear of avocado and the pit of avocado. So yes, I would say, carrots are okay. Asparagus, spinach leaves, broccoli, those things are okay. But yes, I would steer clear of things like peach pits, avocado pits in the core of the apple. Even if they don't cause toxicity, those seeds and those pits can get lodged in the GI tract and cause a foreign body. And sometimes those pits are too big to pass through, and now they cause an obstruction. So yes, please be aware of those and steer clear of them if you can.
And if my pet, eats, some of this accidentally or a small amount, sometimes we don't know how much they ate, but they're acting normal. What is a good time windows that we can be relieved that they didn't eat too much or, still be looking out for?
It's a great question because when do you know that if they're out of the woods or not? For a lot of these products, they will start showing signs within a few hours, but it does depend on how much they ate and the product that they ingested. So for example, if they ate a peach pit and it causes an obstruction, it could be days before you realize that it's caused an obstruction. However, if they eat baker's chocolate and they eat enough of it, you might notice signs, within hours. So it does depend. If you are suspicious that your pet has ingested something that could potentially be toxic, call your family veterinarian right away. They will get all that information from you, like the size of your pet, how much you think they ate, and what they ate. And then we can take that information and look it up. You can also call a poison control hotline. You can go online and look up the pet poison control hotline, and they can give you more information as well.
You mentioned that hotline. Does it cost anything?
It does. Usually there's a fee associated with the consultation, and the fee may vary, but last I checked, it was around $50 to $75. So there will be a fee associated with it. But if it's going to help you determine whether your pet is safe or needs immediate care, it may be worth it.
And then what's the difference between us calling them versus just a regular veterinarian?
Yeah, if your veterinary clinic is open, it's always preferable that you call your family veterinarian because they're familiar with your pet, they're familiar with you. But sometimes this may happen late at night, maybe when your family veterinarian is closed or you can't get through to an emergency veterinary hospital. And so this is a way that you can maybe get some consultation, some help in the comfort of your own home without having to leave.
All right, now moving on to house plants. It's a common question whether, is it all of the plant that's dangerous? Is it the soil that they, try to dig into? Or just if they physically eat the leaves of it?
That's a great question too. So that also depends on the plant that we're talking about. So for some plants, all of the parts are toxic. And then for other plants, it could be the bulb, it could be just the leaves. So I do have an example here, really of my least favorite plant because it is very highly toxic. And this is, although it's a beautiful plant, it is really toxic to pets and has caused lots of death in pets over the years. This is called a sago palm. It looks like a mini palm tree, and so lots of people like to have this in their backyard, particularly if they have a pool, because it looks like a mini palm tree, and it's a beautiful plant. But all of the parts of this plant are highly, highly toxic. The leaves, the stem, the bulbs, the roots, all of it. And so we want to make sure that you are keeping this out of your yard if you have pets. We don't want them to have any exposure to the sago palm. The sago palm can cause death by causing liver failure. So it can cause liver failure, within hours after ingesting, and it can oftentimes be fatal. And if not, it can take months for your pet to be back to normal if they are ever back to normal. So highly toxic plant, causes liver failure, sometimes even kidney failure. This is the sago palm. But there are others that are, beautiful plants again, like lilies. Lilies are beautiful, but they can also cause toxicity as well, some heart problems and some vomiting and diarrhea. Oleander, azaleas, philodendrons. There's a whole list of toxic plants that you should make sure that your pets stay away from. If you want to get a full list of that, you can always look online and Google toxic plants for pets, and there's a list. But again, if nothing else, most of them can cause some GI upset.
And I wonder nowadays with Google and like AI, if you could just take a picture of the plants you have and upload it, and they could probably tell you there.
Yes, I think there is an app where you can take a picture of the plant. It will identify it, and then you can go from there and determine whether it's something that is safe to have around your pets or not.
And then what are the most common household items that you see in a veterinarian that cause harm?
Yes. So one of the most common ones, again, that probably we all have heard about, and that's rats, bait, and rat poison. I don't have an example of that here, but it's very common. There's lots of different types of rat poison and rat bait. And so depending on the type and the product that you buy, that determines what clinical signs that we're going to see. The type that we're most familiar with is usually the one that causes bleeding. So there is a type of rat poison that is an anticoagulant or causes excessive bleeding in rats, and therefore in your dog or cat that ingests it. And so essentially your pet could pass away from hemorrhage, from bleeding too much. But they have made much safer rat baits and rat poisons these days, so you can certainly find safer options to rid your property of rats and mice without using those types. There are other types that cause brain damage. And so the variety is out there. If you think that your pet has gotten into some sort of rat bait or rat poison, call your family veterinarian as well. And it's going to help if you know the active ingredient, have the product name and the active ingredient. We can look at the back of that and determine how to best treat your pet. Another very common household item that you may have in your garage, particularly if you're working on cars, is antifreeze. So antifreeze or coolant we put in our cars very frequently, and so this is a common household item, and it smells very sweet and it tastes very sweet, and so pets tend to be attracted to it. But this can also be not only toxic but potentially fatal. If your pet gets enough of antifreeze, drinks enough of it, it can cause kidney failure. It causes the production of what we call calcium oxalate crystals or stones, and those crystals form in the kidneys and it causes kidney failure. And that can also happen within about 12 hours. So please keep your antifreeze, your coolant, with a tight lid on it. Keep it on a shelf in your garage away from your pets. If you spill any in your garage or in your yard, make sure that you rinse that off right away so that dogs and cats do not come along and look that up. Yes.
And if I want to use weed killer in my backyard, can my dogs get sick from it from just walking on it, or any tips?
If you have someone coming to treat weeds in your yard, there are products that are safe for pets, but it's always recommended to wait until the spray dries. So you don't want to spray your weeds, spray your grass, then let your pets ride out. I would say let your pets out, go to the restroom, bring them in, and then go out and spray the yard. That way you have several hours for it to set in, for it to dry. You can also talk to your gardener, your landscaper about products that are safe for pets because they are out there. So just let them know so they can use the products appropriately. So other household items, we love our homes to smell good. So we're always using, scented oils and things like that. Scented oils can be toxic if your pets ingest them. The oils can be toxic to the oral cavity and the gastrointestinal tract. It can cause ulcerations and pain. And so you want to make sure that if you have these scented oils that you keep your pets away from them, particularly cats. They love to lick liquids. So if you have liquids like this that are out, please keep your cats away from them. Cats love to jump on the counters and chew on things. So potpourri, scented oils that are in a little glass jar, those can be certainly more enticing to cats and can be toxic to them.
So those things are toxic in the air, or just if they get a hold of them?
They're toxic if they get a hold of them. In some cases, if they are inhaling a lot of the fumes, sometimes the fumes can cause inflammation in the lungs and lead to pneumonia. So the fumes in some cases can also cause adverse effects in your pets, but certainly ingesting it is even higher of a risk.
And we did have someone on Facebook ask, their pet likes to chase bugs and lizards. Are those poison dangers in any way?
They can. Some of them can be. Some of the frogs, the lizards may secrete toxins from their skin that can cause dogs to foam at the mouth and to have vomiting or inappetence. So yes, if you can prevent your dog from chasing and biting at the frogs and the lizards in your yard, that may be best as well, because certainly some of them, particularly the frogs, can have a secretion from their skin that can cause the dogs to foam at the mouth, be very uncomfortable for them. So great question.
All right. Medication. Which ones are safe? Which ones aren't?
Oh gosh, yes. Okay, this is a huge thing too. I know that sometimes your pet may injure themselves at home, sometimes just running around the yard or playing with each other. Sometimes you may have a dog that comes up with a limp and you don't really have time, or you may not want to take your pet to the veterinarian right away. You may decide that you want to treat it at home. I do not recommend this. The reason is you're going to want to try to use a pain medication that might be used in people, like a Tylenol or ibuprofen or, something like that, an acetaminophen or ibuprofen. These can be highly toxic to your pets. Please do not use ibuprofen or acetaminophen in your pets. The reason is these drugs are metabolized by the liver, and then they're usually excreted from the body through the kidneys. Well, the way that these drugs are metabolized in pets is not the same as it is in people. Oftentimes the enzymes, the molecules needed to metabolize these drugs are not present either in the same amounts or the same type that they are in humans. And so even small amounts of Tylenol or small amounts of ibuprofen can be toxic to the liver and or kidneys in your pets. Please contact your family veterinarian, get medication that is specific to dogs and or cats, and make sure it is the appropriate dose for your pet's weight. So weight matters a lot when we're dosing medication. You don't just want to reach in and grab a 500 milligram tablet, especially if you have like a 5 or 10 pound pet.
And then, of course, the medicines we don't want, our own personal ones we don't want to share with them. Yeah. Kind of remembering that it can be child-proof, but not necessarily pet-proof.
Yes, you're exactly right. Sometimes our medications, again, that maybe a doctor prescribed us. So maybe your family veterinarian or your family physician or your doctor prescribed you medication, and your pet gets into that medication. Maybe the lid came off or they chewed the bottle and got to those pills. That can cause a serious problem too. Sometimes medications, for example, Adderall, that's a stimulant. That's a very common one that people may be taking, and it's a stimulant. And what happens when dogs eat Adderall is it becomes a stimulant to them too. So they get a high heart rate, they get anxiety, they pant, and in some cases it can cause a death. So we want to make sure that you're keeping your medications out of the reach of your pets. Keep those lids on, keep them high up and out of the reach of your pets.
And then we see some batteries over there too.
Yes. We have these everywhere, right? In your remote and toys. They're everywhere. And if you
and dogs love chewing remotes.
They love chewing remotes. They love chewing up maybe children's toys that have these in them. And so if they chew on these batteries, they may not be doing it intentionally, but they may bite into a remote or a toy and bite into the batteries. Well, the batteries can leak alkaline substances that also can cause ulcerations in the mouth and the GI tract. And so this can be very painful. It can make your pet not want to eat. It can even cause obstructions if they eat enough of the batteries or swallow them. So batteries can be toxic because they're ulcerating the mouth as your pet chews on them. So try to keep anything with batteries out of the reach of your pet, really, if you know that your pet is the type to chew on things. So yes, thank you for pointing that out as well.
Someone asked if we can use hydrogen peroxide to induce vomiting.
Okay, so this is the thing. If you think your pet has gotten into something at home and you want to make them vomit, if you can, please still contact your family veterinarian first. The reason is, again, hydrogen peroxide is given to pets to make them vomit, but it is based on weight, and you don't want to give too much or too little because it will be ineffective. What we've noticed with hydrogen peroxide is that it can be effective. It can make your pets vomit. In some cases, it works really, really well. But we also know that hydrogen peroxide, when given in large amounts, can cause GI upset itself. So hydrogen peroxide can also cause gastroenteritis or inflammation in the GI tract. So you want to make sure you're giving the right amount. In addition, you want to make sure that you're not giving hydrogen peroxide when your pet ingests certain things. If your pet ingests something sharp, for example, a needle or something like that, you don't want to make them throw up, because there's a greater risk that as they're throwing up that sharp object causes more damage coming back up or causes a puncture in the GI tract. So I would say before you stimulate vomiting in your pet, please contact your family veterinarian and make sure that whatever they ingested is appropriate to make them vomit and that the time limit hasn't passed. Usually, you want to do that within 2 hours of them ingesting whatever that they have ingested. If it's been 6, 7, 8 hours, causing them to vomit is probably not going to work. You certainly don't want to make them vomit if they're having other clinical signs like lethargy or panting, or they're already vomiting and having diarrhea. Get them to the veterinarian right away.
And somebody asked, my dog loves to chew on plastic bottles and caps. Are those considered dangerous?
Yeah, so everything could potentially be dangerous. I would say if they're chewing on a plastic bottle, take the cap off, because the cap can come off easily. It's easily ingested and swallowed by accident. So I would say if they're chewing on a plastic bottle, we sometimes use those as toys. We'll put maybe rocks or something in a plastic bottle, and it can make a good toy for some pets. But I would say maybe take the cap off, because that little cap could be ingested very quickly without us noticing it, and it could be a potential foreign body. So, it could be used safely. Just keep an eye on them as they're playing with those things.
And then, is it true that certain flea, shampoo, or medications are poisonous to cats?
Yeah, so cats are especially sensitive to some flea and tick medications, especially the ones that you see over the counter, where the active ingredient is something called a pyrethrin. If you're purchasing flea or tick medication over the counter at your local pet store or grocery store, look at the active ingredient. If that active ingredient has pyrethrins, then pyrethrins do tend to be toxic for cats, and it can cause nervousness, it can cause tremors, seizures, hypersalivation. And so this is something that you just want to be aware of if you are shopping for over-the-counter medications. I would say, again, contact your family veterinarian, get a medication that is veterinarian prescribed so that you can make sure that it's safe. But yes, certainly cats can have really adverse reactions to some over-the-counter pyrethrin-related medications. So, thank you guys for tuning in with us today. There's lots of information that we gave you today, and products that you might have in your household that could potentially be a risk for poisoning your pet. Just keep your home safe. Make sure you put things where they belong. Keep them out of reach of your pet. And if you get yourself into a situation, or your pet gets themselves into a situation where they need immediate medical care, please don't hesitate to call your family veterinarian or the pet poison control hotline and get some help. We thank you for joining us. Please consider coming on down and visiting us in our adoption center. We especially want to see you April 1st. Put it on your calendar, set an alarm, let everyone know, bring your family and friends. April 1st is going to be a special day here for us at the Houston SPCA. It's going to be our open house. Our open house is going to be where we're going to have lots of family fun and activities. Not only are we going to have pets available for adoption, but we are also going to have egg hunts for your children. We are going to have wildlife educational talks from the Wildlife Center of Texas. You're also going to be able to get a sneak peek into our kitten nursery. It is kitten season. We have lots of baby kittens being born. And so you're going to get a sneak peek into our 24-hour kitten nursery where we bottle, feed, and hand raise baby kittens 6 months out of the year. And you're also going to get a sneak peek into our equine and farm animal center. We've got wonderful equine and farm animals here on our campus. You may not have known that. We want to introduce you to them and to the wonderful team that cares for them. So come on down. We can't wait. There's going to be food. There's going to be beer sampling. That's reason enough to show up. And there's going to be lots of fun. So we can't wait to see you April 1st from noon to 4 p.m. In our adoption center here at the Campus for All Animals. Thank you again for joining us, and we will see you next week.